I bet. Okay. We're live.
Good
Morning, good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the March 9th, 2022 Airport Advisory Board. I'd like to have the call to order and the roll call of the airport board.
Aaron Salzer,
Joan Junter,
Greg G. Feller.
Alex Birch, Brett Weir, Mark Beer.
Okay, let's all rise for the pledge of allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to have the visitors introduce themselves, please. Corey.
Corey Super with Keel Engineers.
J.R. Norvell, CEO Engineer.
Registered with Luxury International.
Luxury International.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's a company that we'd like to do a preliminary presentation to the board with us of creating a new world-class FBO operation at the airport.
okay. Okay,
Lily Airport. Kim Stevenson Airport.
Frank O'Connell, airport rep.
Elspeth Roach, Harley Air, Airport Association, right?
Jeremy Diamond, D-Zone Skydiving. Nelson Erickson, Stanford.
all right. Welcome, you guys. I'd like to call for conflicts of interest. And I'll be straight up, I have a conflict of interest when we talk about lease fees. So basically, I may sit up here still, but I won't be participating in any of the discussion because I'm a tenant.
So one clarification is you actually don't have a conflict of interest because you're not gaining, you're not profiting from anything.
Okay,
So I wouldn't truly be a conflict of interest. If you feel you'd like to recuse yourself, that is fine. But you're not profiting, which is typically where the conflict of interest comes from.
okay, well, I thought since we may be lowering lease fees, I want to stay out of the conversation.
That's up to you.
Okay,
So you're also not the board to decide. So if the
Okay,
commission
right.
does,
okay,
You can make
okay,
recommendations.
to the county.
That's all we're doing, is making recommendations.
Okay. I just really wanted to sit out there for a while.
You'd like to, you can allow,
All right.
I'm just, for the record,
Okay,
it's my opinion, not an attorney or anything, but because you're not profiting from it.
Right.
There is not. conflict.
okay. Thank you for
Sure.
setting me straight.
It's always nice, the appearance is probably the case, is probably sometimes just the appearance. of-
I'll go sit out there then. When that
We'll
discussion.
let you sit back.
Okay.
We won't let you.
All right, okay, fine. Call for approval of minutes of the previous meeting.
So.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, part 139 certification. This is the discussion.
So there's been some comments about that the airport should get rid of our 139 discussion, or the 139 certification. It'll never be my recommendation that the airport does that, because typically as an airport moves backwards, that's when an airport tends to go downhill. There's when you start not doing something, you tend to, whatever it is, you lose one thing, it starts going into the snowball effect of going downhill. But also as a question to this advisory board, that's the same question I'll ask the BOCC is, what level of service does this airport want to provide to its customers? Do we want to provide the level of service that we're providing right now, which is snow removal, maintaining the runways and taxiways to a high level of standards, painting basically every year, crack sealing, providing wildlife coverage, doing fire coverage, doing snow removal 7 days a week, and doing all these things that a 139 airport provides. We want to do those things. And I'm guessing Aaron likes to see a lot of those things as a jet pilot. I'm guessing Greg is, as a non-jet pilot, likes to see some of those things, but some of those things he doesn't really care about. But where do we draw that line of who is important and who isn't important? Is there a cost factor in it? Yeah, absolutely. There's a cost factor. We could, to be blunt, we could save money, but there's also other costs that people don't realize too. Right now, the airport internally takes care of all crack sealing ourselves. We take care of all the painting ourselves. And really, if we start looking at getting rid of a 139 certificate, first thing we're doing is we're getting rid of the ARF truck. We're gonna get rid of most of our heavy equipment. So when we have an incident, like we had a couple of weeks ago, where an aircraft flipped over and was on its back, we're not gonna have equipment to assist those pilots. So that pilot's gonna have to pay a crane operator to come out here and operate that after hours calls. Where we can do that now. We have that equipment.
Extending the closure times and
It's
everything else.
extending closure times, it's extending last times. But also, we're gonna be dropping our total staff time, totals will drop from, right now, we're 6 people for ops staff. Realistically, we'll probably drop to 2, be here 8 to 5 Monday through Fridays. Well, and that's it.
So does it make any difference from if the FAA gives us a different amount of funding if you're 139 or not?
In my opinion, reviewing funding numbers, absolutely. And I actually looked through some airports, other airports in the area. This is funding numbers for some other airports around us. COA has $12 million in the last 12 years. Foundry has 4, Sandpoint has 2.8. Shoshone has 2.8. Caldwell has 6 million. So basically, you take all 4 other airports, they basically add up to what we got.
And how long have we been 139?
We've been 139 since as long as they've done 139, which they issued them originally in 1998. There was something they called it differently. I don't remember what they called it, but we've had a certificate since then.
Now, when we got that certificate, that was because we actually had unscheduled or just,
So we are what is called a class 4 airport. What that means is we can accommodate large carrier unscheduled aircraft. So that means if we have, so we get a couple phone calls a year, we have large aircraft that want to come in. In fact, just a few months ago, we had a call, they were trying to set up a trip in for a 737 or an A320. And it's just a charter trip, that's what they're looking to try to do. If we didn't have a 139 certificate, they couldn't do it. They'd have to go elsewhere.
okay,
That's like that guy with the 757 every summer, he comes in here with his staff, I think, too.
Yep, and if we couldn't accommodate that aircraft, and it has to do with the number of seats on board.
Over 33 or something like that. 30.
19, or
19.
30, it depends, it's 30 if I'm not.
Okay. So,
Is military exempt?
Military is its own thing.
so I don't know if this is a place to bring this up, but Mark and I, we met with the Coeur d'Alene Airport Association. They'll probably cover that in their update too, but there was a lot of pushback on why this 139. And so basically, I guess if you could summarize.
The 139 is, if you look at airports, I'm trying to find my. So you look at airports that have 139 throughout the country.
You didn't know you'd be put on the spot.
I had something, but I can't find it right now. I
Okay.
thought I saved it in here.
Well, let me ask another question. So then those large planes can come in. So in other words, if down the road, I know this is a really mixed bag. If if commercial traffic ever comes in here, what some people do not ever want to see, would that eliminate that?
If we have 139 certificate, we can make changes and things like that, and we can accommodate. If we lose it, it becomes much more of a challenge. And it's very challenging. The FAA claims it's not, but I've never seen an airport get it back. For example, this is a spreadsheet of all 139 airports. And there's 4 classes of 139 airports. Class 1 is pretty much commercial airports. It's any of the your triple air carrier airports you see, it's your Spokane, it's all those airports. Class 2 and 3 are these different categories. They can accommodate small commercial aircraft, but not large commercial, and not large unscheduled, and those various mixes. The Class 4 aircraft, 139 airports that can accommodate large unscheduled aircraft, but nothing else. So it's just the various types of what they can do.
Okay.
So if you look, Class 4 airports make up basically about 16% of all 139 airports.
Okay.
Oddly enough, when you actually calculate the total number of airports, there's 3,300 nippiest airports in the country. Of the 139 airports, there's about 16% of them there. It's really weird how that ended up happening. But you actually go through the list of what is Class 4 airports. The large regional hub airport, the large regional or national airports. There's a couple random local ones that I don't understand why they're on here. But they're busy airports like we are.
Okay.
Because airports understand that once you get to a certain activity level, you truly need to have a level of inspections out there. You need to be somebody present, and a level of activity just warrants that need.
Okay, so I mean, for the association, I'll give you 3 minutes to comment, but also, I want to, I don't know, I don't want to put you on the spot, Stan Kraft, but it makes a difference to you, doesn't it? If you have the runways de-iced and ice-free and everything else, because if not, the maintenance is going to go down. And I've taken off on these runways that were iced because they weren't closed, because you weren't 139.
Well,
Yeah, but I mean, so the whole deal is that I guess we're trying to balance making it good for the small single engine aircraft, or else trying to make it so the airport has a chance to serve all the community, which are be a lot more regional jets coming in here than before. And that's my opinion anyway.
And that's why I asked the
Yeah.
question, what is this board, what's this board want to serve? Does it want to serve? Who's the minimum we want to serve? Is it the single engine guys that can accommodate or can operate on a better maintained surface that a jet has to have in order to operate? So that's where you have that question of, that's where the board has to decide.
Go ahead, Joe.
So I have a question. What is the objection to the 139?
Guys, you got 3 minutes.
Well, before you get into your 3 minutes.
Yeah. Well, Linda's got the timer at this point.
What would be, is there a way to say, okay, the 139 costs the county or the airport some number of dollars? Is there a way to say that, or?
I mean, we could figure it out. You're gonna have some numbers in there that the airport itself, you're still gonna run, my guess is between 7 and 8 to maybe 900,000 just in your costs. It doesn't matter. Because you gotta pay the lights, you gotta pay the power, you gotta do everything else. Your true cost is your staff cost. You're going from 6 operations staff members to do inspections, you do everything else. If you drop to 2, okay, well, you're gonna cut staff members out. And what does that level of service look like when you cut that out? And then you also have to put in the other costs of, okay, every 3 to 5 years, we have to pay somebody to come in and paint the runway now, because 2 people can't paint this airport. It's not physically possible.
They don't have enough rollers to do that?
No, it's gotta be a certain way. And it's very challenging. Crack sealing too, because at that point, we're losing a lot of that institutional knowledge. It's very challenging to crack seal that. And it's, a lot of things now have to be done outside of the staff. But we just don't have that institutional or the ability to.
Now, is by having the 139 though, don't we in a way have a positive influx of dollars?
Yes.
To help maintain everything,
Yes.
even though we have to
In my
do some matching here and there, but.
in my opinion, this airport has grown more because we are 139, because we get more grant money because of 130. So you look at how the FAA works, they claim it has nothing to do with 139. Well, the numbers don't lie about their grant numbers.
But, I mean, it's just by nature, you're gonna look and go, okay, let's say, all right, now we've got some money left over, let's
What is our,
trickle
most-
down to.
what's our higher percentage, what's our higher busier airport of,
Right.
what has more things behind that airport's name?
Okay,
Let's just,
okay, right on, and I'll give,
now I'm done.
I want to have Joan's question answered. If one of you guys out there feel comfortable answering why you don't want 139.
You know, Greg, we talked last night, it wasn't really that I was so gonna quickly oppose to 139. I think what we're doing at this stage is we're saying, what is 139 and what is it doing for us? And, well, I can certainly understand Steve's concern, because this is his kingdom. And I can understand it coming out and saying that draconian bad things will happen if we get rid of it. I don't know what the honest answer is to that question. Incrementally, I don't know what it costs. I don't know what it provides. I've been through the FAR, and it basically says, if you want passenger air service, you have to be 139. And I'm certain there are a lot of airports around that are not 139. Still remove snow, still paint their runways, still get ground money. But, I'm not in his position of knowing. And as I discussed with you last night, I think we just need to have a dialogue, take an honest look at it, and say, okay, is this for the incremental cost really a value for Coogan County? Is it something we really want to continue pursuing? And if we look at it and we say, yeah, it's working fine, it's marginally incremental in cost, but the benefits outweigh that, I'm not gonna argue with that. But if we're basically funding a program of expanding this airport with ultimately the idea of putting passenger air service in here, that's where I'm saying, well, wait a minute, is that something that we really want, as we discussed? Passenger air service has been introduced into this airport 3 times, it's failed 3 times. If you put it back in here another time, I'm certain it's probably not gonna work out very well either. But it's really just a matter of just taking a good, hard, honest look at it. Not just me coming out of the gate and saying, with 139 yet, let's not deal with it. I would just like to better understand, exactly what it's providing for this airport in terms of what it costs versus what the benefits are.
Thank you.
And I think you're on the same page with that too.
So one thing I want to address, so let's talk about commercial service because
Airline service.
Airline
We have
service.
commercial service every day.
I want to talk about commercial service and we're going to talk, for one, I'm going to talk about Empire. Realistically, Empire was not what I would call true level commercial service and security, everything of that. It was not what you would call commercial service today. When we talk about commercial service today, your infrastructure cost is between $60 and $100 million to get off the ground today. You got to build a terminal, you got to build your terminal infrastructure package. So let's talk about how we get to that point. If you do that point, because I've done that path. FAA will probably kick in between 20, because they're limited by law to $20 million into the terminal. Well, your terminal on its own under that is between 40 and $60 million just for an average terminal today, just your costs. But then your terminal package around it is your parking lots, your road structures, all your other things is where you get your other 40 million. A lot of that isn't FAA eligible. So your ramps and things are, so realistically, you're probably looking at between about $40 million what the FAA would pay in to that project. Well, we don't have $60 million floating around. So this comment of to get commercial service in, that would take a bond vote. And it's not realistic that I ever think that we're gonna get a bond vote to get this in. So everybody jumping immediately to this, oh, well, we're just trying to do this to get commercial. That's not the purpose. The purpose of 139, in my opinion, here is we want to be an alternative to Spokane in case they ever have an emergency with an aircraft has to divert here. That's a very good valid point to why we maintain 139. So we have a guaranteed support structure for people like Stancraft, jet service. We have a justification to have the level of airport that it is today to maintain that into the future. So that's why it's jumping into this path of we want it so we can get commercial. That's not my comments. If you listen to what I've said, it's like, yeah, could eventually somebody come in here and want to do commercial? Sure. Do I think it's tomorrow or 5 years down the road? Most likely not. Because we couldn't fund it.
Well, I would counter that. You've got a perfectly good international airport next door. And you go directly into competition with them, and that's one reason it's never lasted around here, is they cut their ticket prices to make sure that they keep you out of that market. But I guess the concern we have is when you look at 139, the primary idea behind it is to accommodate commercial passenger or traffic. And that's why, and Greg can bear me out on this, we talked about it last night. I don't know what I don't know for sure. I'm not in your position, you know, it's like I said, this is your baby, it's not mine. But when I see what's going on with the airport, with the increases in security, and the increases in fees, and the increases in spending, and the increases in staffing, it starts to lead one to question what exact direction are we going? Now, if you sit here and say, yeah, I would never advocate for commercial passenger service, I'd say, fine, I take you at the word. But otherwise, it tends to, one thing tends to lead to another, just looking at the documentation. And that's why we felt it worthwhile to say, okay, what is Part 139 actually doing for us? Why do we want it? I think that's a dialogue that can be had. I think that's an investigation that can be made. And I think that will do everybody's.
So just so I'm clear, is the Airport Association's objection to the possible objection to the Part 139 just the commercial service aspect of it? Or are there other
Well,
concerns?
it would be the entire package. You know, what is it costing us incremental? You know, if we're looking at Part 139 costing us material, well, it's $700,000 a year to maintain the certification. I think we would just like to look at it and say, okay, what do we get in return for that money? How does that benefit the airport? How does that benefit the county? That's it. I really don't want to see commercial passenger service here. I would never want to see her. I got a feeling there's a lot of people in Post Falls and Haiti who want to meet her, because this is not Airway Heights, with an Air Force base next to work, and plane approaches in and out without making a lot of noise. I have a condominium in Missoula that's under flight out to the airport. We're 5 miles away, and I could sit there with a slingshot and bounce BBs off the bottom of the jets coming in. But you know, that airport was there a long time. It was doing commercial service a long time before a lot of development. We're in a little bit of a different position here. We're growing like a weed. You know, we're looking at, okay, what's Part 139 do for us? Do we want commercial air passenger service? Do we not want to continue to try and service the market that we already have? Just basic questions as to what do we want?
Well, I'd like to address that one comment. I think without Part 139, we could not service what we currently have.
And that's,
I think
you know, that's a
something
question
we
we
should
should answer.
Look at, yes.
Right on. Okay, so I'm gonna take one more comment, Harry.
Yeah, I would like to mention one more thing, and that's the noise complaints that we have. If we have any, I don't, you'd probably be better suited to handle that, but if we have more traffic with big jets, and I'm sure we have jets now coming in there, the corporate guys, do we get a lot of complaints out of that? Is there any?
You want to know who my, realistically, the biggest complaints we get are from your aircraft, your size aircraft, your flight schools.
Flight schools?
And not even so much flight schools, when we go back and really start looking through
Okay.
where the times and the recordings, it's
touch and go.
It's touch and go. It's not the jets. And realistically, so when you look at a commercial airport, 250,000 passenger and plane to airport is 9 to 15 flights a day. So that's 30 operations spread out over an entire day.
Yeah.
But we do 150 to 250 operations a day during the winter, and 400 to 600 during the summer.
Right.
Well, what's 30 operations a day added to it? Nothing.
Yeah.
So,
and the other factor would be the cost, for a 139 versus a non-139 airport. Of course, we have the corporates, they operate under 91, so they're excluded from that. They don't need the 139. So my question is there any way we could do a real, like Steve Anderson said, do we need to do an audit to figure out what the costs are? Because I mean, if it's a 40% cost or a 50% cost, that's quite a bit of money. And how much once you figure that out, how much is the taxpayer
liable for that portion of the airport funds.
So that realistically goes back to what does this board and what does the BOCC want to provide as services?
Right.
So if you're basically gonna provide every service that a 139 airport provides, the question is realistically, 139, that would add some record keeping and some training. Add some fire station, but you already have the building in place, you're not gonna tear it down.
You got the training and
The training, which is a, couple of thousand per person.
yeah. And how many 139 operations do we have now per year?
Usually a couple per year.
So we're doing this 139 for 2 operations per year.
Well,
But the thing is you have to keep in mind, the 139 puts a bare minimum of the level of service that you have to provide.
Sure.
So let's be honest, this county is well known for liking to cut things that aren't required and only doing mandated services. So what happens when things are no longer mandated at the airport? What's the commission gonna do? What's the next set of commissioners gonna do? What's those next set of commissioners gonna do? When it's no longer a mandated service, the 139 doesn't say you shall do this. I'm gonna ask you that question. Does that path, that is another path that somebody could go down.
Yeah.
And it's the same what if questions that you guys are asking too.
Yeah.
That's that same, that's that double-sided coin.
So,
Yes.
okay, so Harry, and sorry. Is the concern from the airport association that because we have some mandated services required by Part 139, that those costs are being borne by you guys? Is that the concern?
No, I think it's more on the taxpayers. I mean, if you can give me, if you can justify the cost, additional cost of a 139 airport versus, with 2 operations per year or 3 operations per year, that's pretty nominal at best. I mean, if you were saying, okay, well, Southwest wants to come in with a charter flight for Coeur d'Alene Resort of 14 aircraft a year, that might be a little different story. But if we have to kind of balance the justification, why we need it or why we don't need it, and look at the costs to the taxpayer, because the whole county of Kootenai County is going to pay for that, not just the airport.
So Harry, the airport no longer takes any tax money.
That's what I thought.
Right. Yeah,
So
the
you're
taxpayers-
self-sufficient.
can I ask a question that might help Stancraft? You guys have a heated hangar, right? Handles what? 2 jets? Yeah, that was built so that jet service could come in here during the winter. Yeah. Okay, and a cleared runway is helpful for that? Okay, so if I've got it right, we would maybe not have the runway cleared when those jets came in because, well, we don't have the manpower because it got cut. Stancraft has how many people working for them during the winter?
That's a good question. I don't know the exact.
But
It's about 30 or 40.
30 or 40 jobs. So impact, financial impact to the community, economic impact, positive to the community. So, I mean, just looking at Aaron,
Some
you guys,
perspective, yeah, perspective to that. In 2012, we spent thousands of dollars moving our airplanes from Coeur d'Alene over Spokane because Coeur d'Alene couldn't keep the runways open here. And it didn't have to do with the amount of snow or anything else. It was a little, in my opinion, mismanagement of the plowing situation back then. Now, I don't know how much of that comes down to 139, but I will say this year, we didn't have to cancel any trips. We were hardly delayed. And it wasn't an airport issue, that was a Stancraft issue. All truths be told. we used to move our aircraft before Creme 2 News 6-inch snow the night before. Pay $600 to $1,000 to park the airplane at Spokane in a hangar. We're substantially delayed on that side just because of everybody, rental cars getting to and from and all the stuff. So it impacted a homegrown jet operated out of Coeur d'Alene for 20 years prior to me getting there, during that time. And so I'm all for the 139 stuff. If we can get equipment and maintain it and keep the runways clear, at least one of them, and we've discussed it, the big one. But little guys can fly off the big runway too. So you can keep the big runway open. I think I saw a 4-hour closure once this year so that they could catch up. But other than that, no. So I'm all for it and I'm kudos to it for my operation, but I'm just one out of the bunch. We buy a lot of gas.
So I'm seeing an economic impact, positive
Absolutely.
to the airport and to the community.
Yep.
I mean, by having the 139
I
and
agree with that.
maintain a level of service pursuant to 139 regs.
Yeah, well, okay.
Okay.
I think it's been a great discussion. No, we aren't. That's a discussion item. So it's a good discussion. I think that we need to look at, it came up last night too, I think only because it was on the agenda. But personally, I like the security things that have been put in place. I don't mind the prox cards. I don't know why you build a fence throughout the Hutter, but the FAA wanted it. But I like that kind of security. I'm sick and tired of coming out here and finding out there's holes in my hangar because somebody hit it with a boat trailer. It's like, so, but I like that. If I had an airplane on the ramp out here, I'd probably be a little bit worried with the way things are going right now, if somebody'd be in my airplane or not. So I'm glad I'm in the hangar. So I personally like the security too.
Can you give some background? When did the airport become Part 139 and what precipitated it?
So I can't tell you exactly when and why. It was 98 was when the certificate was issued originally. It was reissued in 2005. Because that was when they redid a bunch of 139 stuff. It was a big push. It was a push by Greg and Phil. It was a big hack by them, and you look at the list of airports that you go to the FAA's website on what it is. It's these big GA airports. It's who these Class 4 airports are. It's anybody with basically above 80,000 operations. That's when you start putting into that. Okay, we probably should do this.
Well, I know at the time that in 2005 that was redone, I don't recall hearing any public comment against that or any concern from anyone on the field. So I'm not sure what's changed in the interim.
Good. Well, thank you, Stephen.
But I think the comment to what John was saying, I think it's a level of activity, the level of expenditure it takes to run this airport. Logically, we started looking at it saying we had Part 139 during Delavan's tenure here. It didn't really seem to make much difference one way or another. Since Stephen was arrived, we've seen a lot of activity ramp up here. We are questioning, okay, what are the incremental costs of 139 and how much benefit are we getting out of it? I take everybody's arguments. I understand what you're saying. We think we get a better level of service than we really need to have here. I will argue with that. But we're just saying, okay, is it something we really need? What does it cost? So, you're saying that you're self-sufficient? No, you're not. Last year, you rounded up the taxpayers for $165,366 and change.
So that
We had Darrow's financial reports.
That was actually them buying some land from us.
Well, the point is, there's still taxpayer money coming in here. You're still spending how you want to spend, and it's going to take that much from taxpayers. Well, back to Harry's point.
Well, I think.
So we're just, excuse me, we're just looking at okay, exactly what is this thing? Because again, I don't know what I don't know. I've learned a lot just sitting here listening, but I just wanted to find out, is this something that's really providing a benefit to the airport? Or is it just something that perhaps the airport could do just as well without?
Yeah, and I think it's unfair to say that we've seen this ramp up since Stevens here. I think what we've seen at our airport is a ramp up from the community coming in, wanting the resources of the airport, the growth that's happening in the area. It's just what's the word I want?
Really a
Well, it's
coincidence.
a
that it happened-
coincidence, that's the word.
happened
It's
to Stevens.
coincidentally just happened and,
Regardless,
So I understand where you're
regardless of the
coming from.
origin, it does prompt the question. That's my point.
Okay,
I'm not here to attack
Yeah,
anybody. I'm just
right.
saying,
and
what is this beast and how does it work?
And I think we gotta stick a fork in this one right now. This is just a discussion item. If there's more conversation, maybe a workshop or something, but I don't really know if that's where it's gonna be. I do know when Phil and Greg got it, it was a big feather in their cap. And maybe Phil and Greg didn't quite keep it up to the standards it needed to be. And maybe now we're trying to take it to the standards. I do know that with the amount of jet traffic, I think they're gonna expect the runways open. Corporate pilot's gonna need it. The luxury condominium hangars maybe thinks that's what we need. And this is my personal opinion. If we start taking things away, my only opinion, the opinion of others may be that we're going downhill. That's just the discussion then. Okay. Okay, Stephen, fee review.
So moving into fee review. So this was sent out, this was a CPI calculation. Right now, the percentage change is 7.48%. Is what CPI is calculated out as. This moves ground leases from 21, or for private ground to 21.1 cents per square foot. So keep in mind, this is only for new leases or leases that are reaching the end of their 25-year term. Most leases that are already in place, they've already got CPI escalation clauses already in place. So this is just what, this is already in place, so it doesn't really, this rate won't affect what the calculation is. The calculation will affect them, but not the new rate, if that makes sense. But it moves to 22.7 cents for private, 28.4 cents for commercial, and 56.7 for non-aeronautical. Something I wanted to touch on is we sent out a packet that was actually included with it was actually Oregon's packet. The state did it. Something we've been talking about at the airport directors and asking what their lease fees are. We're finding we're actually behind the market for similar size activity levels, size, commercial, non-commercial, those kind of things. We're starting to find that we're actually behind. When we compare ourselves to Oregon, you compare like Bend, those things, they're 30 and 35 cents. When you compare us to Kalispell, another resort destination, they're 49, and they actually anticipate being almost $1 by this time next year. And almost, wow, that's
For ground lease?
for ground lease. Yes.
$1 a square?
Square foot. Yes.
Is that a police parking minister? It's the bigger one.
Yeah. And they have more, they actually put a moratorium on all new leases for almost a year or 6 months.
The end of last year.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things we're seeing. McCall, this is McCall's actual resolution. They're at 30 cents per square feet for theirs. It's something we're starting to see is we know if the advisory board approved this, we're at 22.7, Spokane's at 26 or 27, depending on which airports you're at. So we're behind them a couple cents. It's something that we're noticing. It's just trying to bring it up. I'm not recommending any difference to that, but if we do a true study, I'm kind of afraid of what's going to happen. So, The other fee that we're recommending is the landing fee. Keep in mind, this is only for transient aircraft. And this is other locations that we're seeing this in the area. So Glacier Park, this is theirs. Friedman's, Haley's this, Missoula's this. Driggs is the most expensive at $5 per 1,000 pounds.
That's the ultimate for Jackson Hole.
Yep. Pullman is this, the call, oddly enough, they actually charge their base tenants a landing fee. And my recommendation is this, if you'd like to propose something different, happy to listen. Basically, it's following Haley's.
I can talk about this one. So why are we taking it down to 8,000 pounds? And what's an 8,000 pound aircraft?
Basically, it picks up anything of the turboprop aircraft.
Okay.
Pilatus.
But this is not, it wouldn't affect any of our base tenants. And as long as they're listed on our 5010 forms, we'd be exempt. Or they can provide us with a list, and that's our big thing.
What are these fees going to? Is that something earmarked, or is that just going to your general fund, or?
So basically, we have it separated out. Half of it goes into a capital fund and half goes into our operations fund. Or just our general fund.
Moving dirt and
Just our general.
the guys? Okay. So not purchasing or,
Half goes into a capital.
okay.
Any question? So if I land my Pilatus, it's $32 about.
About that.
Who collects that?
That's where we're gonna have a conversation, whether the FBO wants to do it, and they take a percentage. There is a vector to do it. We could do it internally, but it becomes pretty messy when we do it.
What's your projection on annual?
If we institute this, it's somewhere between 250,000 and 290,000.
So I'll make it 250 just for easy.
And currently we get what?
About 80,000.
Is that what we got last year on the fees?
We have to look up that exact.
Because we've been doing this for
It's about
a year, right? Yeah.
a little over a year.
So how are they tracking this?
So right now, Stancraft collects them, and then they remit it to us, they take a 5%. And then they remit it to us. This would be a little bit more complicated because they'd have to implement it and make sure it was right all the time, the aircraft is right. So they probably do a higher fee, we'd have to negotiate with them. There's a couple different ones.
Okay, so eventually you're gonna want to have a motion here and some more discussion, motion in a second. I'm gonna break the rules again and ask Stancraft, you think this is gonna be a big hurdle for you? With these landing fees going up a little bit or not?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay,
So I look at it this way. There's a Global Express that, look, I just heard a charter flight was going to Hawaii for 5 days with $180,000. Global Express for this would be about $300 or $400.
well, it's $180,000 a park in Hawaii.
To sit there for
To go
5
from
days.
here to there.
To here to there and sit there for 5 days.
I'm typically between $20 and $40, and this falls in line with that when I pay it, and wherever it is that I go, minus the outrageous places it gouges regardless. But
And if you want to go a little bit lower.
there we play games, we carry our own gas, and we give them their fees and stuff. We kick them when we can, but as far as I'm concerned, this all falls in line with owning and operating and having a private jet, so that's the cost of doing business.
I think if I own the private jet, I'm not worried about it.
$20.
Well, you could be like,
$50, you go to Haley and it's $375.
we aren't gonna play the Haley game
That
yet,
upsets me. That upsets me a lot, but
even though I think you may like to play the Haley game, but.
I don't want to be.
Okay.
expensive.
Okay, so then let's go back to the, yeah. So are you recommending to do the full CPI?
Yes. Because if we don't, that if we fall behind the market on that, as I said, we're starting we're seeing that, as I said, we're seeing other places that are high, significantly higher. We are, as I talked about before, Spokane is higher.
And this is only on new stuff or renewing stuff.
So renewing
It's
stuff
not-
and new stuff.
It's not
Not
somebody,
existing.
Not existing. The
Well-
existing already have, it's already built into their leases that they will be adjusted by CPI or there's certain newer leases, there's some other things that can be done. Most of the time it's just CPI adjusted. Well, CPI is 7.5%.
So I mean, just for point of interest, in my case, mine comes up this year. Every 5 years it gets adjusted. So I just,
It just.
that's how it works, yeah. Okay. I'll call for a, Harry, you got one thing to say?
I got a question. If you're on a schedule of every 4 years, a rate increase, how will this affect you if you're from this year to say, I just had a rate increase, so will I get another rate increase as soon as this is implemented, or will it not?
So if you just got a rate increase last year, you're good until for 5 years from now.
5 years. And the
So-
other thing is, I know that Lewiston is cheaper and that Moses Lake is cheaper on their ground leases. And so I'm kind of curious as to these airports. They look like they were kind of picked from the higher rate ones versus the lower rate ones, and kind of average them out.
And that's what I'm just saying, that we're starting to notice that we're seeing rates go up. Most of Montana is watching what Kalispell does, let me put it that way. So,
Yeah, I worked out of Kalispell, and they're the highest people in town for some reason. But that's,
but if you're still leasing ground at 49 cents, the rest of the big airports in Montana are gonna go, well, why shouldn't we be at that?
So really the question is that taking your base rate, you raise it by CPI. And all our existing leaseholders that have it in our contract, when they adjust, we set it adjust by CPI. Okay, so I call for a motion.
Before,
Yep.
can I ask a question, just so I understand? I'm gonna pick on Greg's. Okay, so 5 years ago, I'm just gonna say he was at 20 cents, just to make it easy. So now when he renews, it would be at 22.7.
Yeah, he would be at 22.7. Yeah,
Right.
it was.
Just for,
Yeah, he would have
Not
started like an 18, it was like 18.1, he would be at 22 point something. Yeah, so-
okay, so the 7% would be on
Yeah.
his base of
Yeah.
my number of 20, just, so then, okay. And so then just projecting us back into the future again, 5 years from now, and the CPI that year is 2.8,
And that's what it
then
is.
that's what it is.
Like last year, people got really lucky. CPI was only 1.5%.
Yeah.
We can't control.
Okay, so I just wanted to try, it's not a cumulative effect, it's just
It is,
what that year is.
no, it is a cumulative effect. So it is over those 5 years. So sometimes people get really lucky over those 5 years where it's super low.
Okay, right, I mean, it's just like your social security payment, so
It's
oh, well, that's year went up.
And last year we're not really high, and then sometimes it's really low.
Right,
So it is cumulative for those 5
Okay.
years.
okay.
It's
so
fixed.
That's what I was trying to understand.
Whatever it is, it's fixed for the next 5 years.
But it's fixed.
Right,
So
okay.
if it for some miracle it ever goes down, goes negative,
right,
it'll go negative. Do I ever think that's gonna happen anytime soon? No.
but then we'll have a whole nother discussion about macroeconomics and stuff, so we don't need to go there. Okay, I was just trying to understand.
Can any of them that are renewing end up higher than that rate?
Because unless the board chooses to not increase the by CPI.
Also,
Go ahead.
we can do it later, but can you explain on the commercial and the non-aeronautical, and it talks about, it's just the uses inside, it's got 50% tied directly to aviation or less than 50% tied.
Yes.
Who determines that? And is
So it's basically, we'll do an assessment on it, so it's pretty typical, pretty quickly determine whether somebody has an aeronautical use or non-aeronautical use. And it's, like, for example, it's electronics. Right, that E over on the ramp, that's a non-aeronautical use. And then a non-aeronautical prop. So if they're
At a higher rate.
at a higher rate.
And part of that's because the FAA wants you to get the market rate, right? Good.
Okay. For anything for non-aeronautical, we absolutely have to charge right unless there's something that can be how a justification for it.
So I would like to make a motion that we accept the CPI adjustment for the new fees.
I second that.
Any more discussion? So the motion is that we accept these fees as a recommendation to take to the community county commissioners. I've lived in too many counties, the Kootenai County commissioners, that they would accept these fees and change these rates. And when's this effective, Steve?
I typically we do a month after the
Okay.
the board,
Okay.
the first of the month after the board. It's a motion, just want to clarify, it's a motion just for the land rent, or are you also making a motion, is there going to be another motion for the landing fees?
Another motion for landing fees.
All in favor of the land rent? Say aye.
I,
That carries. Okay, let's go to landing fees. Any more discussion on that?
Make a motion to approve them as read.
second,
Any discussion? Any discussion? All in favor?
I,
Opposed? Motion carries. This in your staff report, Stephen, next?
This is in the staff report, unless you got something else.
No, I'd just like you to add, and I think we talked about this a little bit this morning. Progress on the temporary December tower, if any's been made or if it's even possible. And then also a question on selling the Dog Pound property to Brett. Why do we do that? The new mayor paid.
No, he doesn't want that.
Okay, let me.
Okay. I mean, those are just two things. Oh, one more thing. I talked to you about this morning. It came up, why are we replacing the lights? And you told me that the bulbs are failing. There's 1950 bulbs.
We'll talk about it in a second.
Thank you.
Remind me when we get to that item, okay?
Good.
I'm pulling something else out so we can talk.
Got the gavel. Okay.
So our fuel flow numbers were the highest we've ever had. We have 1.9 billion almost. Decent fire season, obviously. Everybody's claiming that we're gonna have a great fire season again. We'll see what we hit for that, but with fuel prices being as high, or oil prices being as high as they are, who knows? For 100 low lead, we also had a record year as well. The line is no longer a flat line, it actually went up a little bit this time. So it's definitely a positive. Also thought we have three FPOs listed here, but eventually I'll drop off. So, are there any questions on this?
That's just gallons, right?
That's gallons.
Okay. That's what I thought. Clarifying in my brain.
You know, I'm really having a hard time tonight. Can we back up just a little bit? The landing fees are only for transient air.
They're only for transient air.
Thank you. Okay.
And you.
Well, I don't care.
and we probably should modify the motion to make sure that that's stated that way.
I think that was.
I thought it was printed that way.
You might want to modify.
Okay. I'd like to modify the landing fees so that it's so read as to it's a transient aircraft only.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Probably had a transient, I forgot.
I thought I saw it someplace else.
It's
but
someplace.
Yeah.
Well, I was so impressed with you. Just like, what did we just do before? Okay.
So D North, we're almost done with that, I hope. So AGIS is almost done. Hopefully we can finish paying the contractor some here. Railway decoupling design, that is the electrical work that is that down to bid. We actually got a really good bid on that. Should actually start this year. What that is to do is our current lighting bulb for 220, it leaks. Not a very good thing to have water get into where we have 600 volts at 6.6 amps.
That why we get half the lights at night?
Something is weird. We're trying to figure out why.
Okay,
We haven't shut off on something.
I closed one eye, I was trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
What a challenge.
Hopefully it wasn't your good eye.
No.
Yeah, there's something goofy going on with the lights. I'm not sure why. So that is why with this, all of our entire control package for 6 to the entire airfield will be swapped over and changed out. What's in there, I have never seen it done this way in my life at any airport ever. So it's a very interesting system. So, but we should have a documentation here soon, where it's and start here, hopefully. Should get a grant this July or
I
August.
think it's July, we'll get a generator too.
But this will include a backup generator, so if we lose power, we can have that. So their field lights will stay on.
Diesel or natural gas?
Natural gas.
Okay.
I don't believe in installing diesel.
I'm fine with that. Fine with that.
So, but new beacon, that way Stancraft can tear down the lovely crappy hangar over there that's ready to fall down anyways. And then we can go from there. So it reruns, home runs. It does a lot of prep work for a lot of other things of, especially when we have to do the decoupling, because at that point we would like to redo 220 lights at that same time, because they are 30 years old as well, which is when you start having maintenance problems with them, and we are having maintenance problems with all of our. But we're also having issues of finding replacements for all of our airfield lighting.
Because we're 30
They're
years.
30 years old.
And people hit it.
Yes.
Stop that.
Really too bad. Like, I can't believe they do, but they do.
Which is why I keep hoping somebody gets our distance remaining signs, because we actually cannot find replacements for those. What is out there is that's it.
Okay.
So great.
Every time I land, I get out to spin around. Okay. Okay.
Fence line, same thing, it's almost done. We should be wrapping that up here shortly. Snow removal building is out for bid right now. We'll see what the bids come out as. We don't know exactly what they'll be. Gulfstream Road extension should actually start work here, hopefully April 1st. That should be coming up pretty quick. So that should be soon. Infinite ramp is the area we've actually got newly designed on that. And that area we're actually working through the leases on those for 6 hangars. We had to do some modification. We thought we were gonna be able to fit 7 hangars in there, but due to, once we started looking at space requirements for allowing that infinite electronics ramp to stay a hangar and gates and things like that, we realized that we don't think it's 6, so.
And I understand that those people, if they rent those lots, are going to be paying the upfront cost.
They'll be paying the upfront cost and the same as Gulfstream.
Nobody's batting an eye.
Nope, actually more than a few of them had said, well, we'll just do it ourselves. We'll take more than one.
Okay.
They're in that business.
Rehabilitation is 624 Bravo. This has actually been approved by the FAA or accepted by the FAA, not approved. For the fees and everything, I'll actually go before the board. But there'll be the design work for the 624 rehab, and should be a grant this year as well.
Yes.
So we should see a grant for this work too. Then there's a plan that next year 624 will be a grant project to rehab 624 with the hope that we can also replace the lighting system as well in the sign package. As well. And then we'll also re-sign a bunch of things there because our airfield signage does not meet the FAA's guidances for airfield signage. Which oddly enough, as we've been sorting and throwing some documents away, I found that golf was actually supposed to be called November 4.
Okay.
So,
And Bravo 4 is just that Office 64 to November, right? That little, so the guys don't have to do a turnaround.
November will become Bravo. November will actually become Bravo,
Oh, okay.
and then Bravo will become Alpha 3 or 4.
Okay.
So we'll have a lot of maps coming out, Greg, that essentially the only primary taxiway that's gonna change names is November.
Yep.
Alpha will remain Alpha, and I guess Foxtrot will become Charlie, correct?
Yes.
But you'll put in that little turn off on 64 to what's now called November, so the people that land on 6.
Yes, so
don't have to go clear
Bravo,
the end.
sorry, so Bravo 4, which is this
Right.
connector here, will become Aggie.
Okay.
That's
What's the timeline for that?
as part of the rehab of 624. that'll be happening. That will allow for, when we do the decoupling project, that we can still have 5,400 feet on 64 the entire time. 2023 construction for rehab of 64 and the construction of Bravo. Sewer inventory is complete. We're just waiting for the report. So then I can give it to Brett and say, here's sewer.
Are you taking
Discussions.
Now's an opportunity. The mayor is gone.
We also have a revised CIP because we've received a couple other things, a couple other grant monies right now. One of our items is we are desperately needed replacement snow removal equipment. That's one of the items. So we've got listed is to replace snow removal equipment. So that's going to be one of our priorities for that money. The thing is, a lot of our projects we already have in place are already going to be fully funded by the FAA because they're really high categories for that. So we don't want to use money we can use for other things on their projects that are funded. So to answer your question about the dog pound, what they actually were talking about is there's technically 3 land releases going on, our sales. One is a temporary easement in this little corner that has to be fixed up when they tie in. Because Ramsey Road's gonna go swing through here. What we're talking about is just in front of the dog pound, about, I think it's 20 feet of that area. It's actually a little bit more than that because as we found out, this is actually still an easement for Reed Road. We don't know why we never cleaned this up in the past. So then there's another one that we haven't gotten quite yet, which is our fence line runs right here for this property right here.
Go back to that for a second.
Which one? This one?
Right. So fence lines there, we're gonna sell that.
Yep. It's outside of our RPZ. We can still extend 600 feet off that end. Doesn't affect us. Fence has already been installed since 2010-ish. So it's been there a while.
Okay, just one.
So the use will probably be like what next door, next door. to
I don't think you're gonna have anything there. I think it's gonna be open.
Yeah, so those of you who were here before, I mean, we went through quite a process to figure out where to put that Ramsey Road extension to the north. And we came to, I think, a pretty good agreement. And so we're in the process right now of acquiring, I don't know, it's about 20 properties, the right of way. We're trying to acquire the right of way from Wyoming all the way up to Lancaster and get the right of way in place. And then the schedule now is construction from Wyoming to Buckles is 24. That's what the schedule is. And we don't have money. We're looking for grants to go from Buckles up. Just everything, trying to acquire this right of way, everything's got way up beyond what the original grant was.
So that's why it's gone. That's why the Humane Society had to move. No.
The Humane Society isn't in a great spot. When we eventually, they're gonna have some issues when we come and square this off. They're not the only ones. Forest Service is gonna be interesting because we never truly addressed that when we did the decoupling. It was in the preliminary studies of how much are we affecting them.
Right.
But you're gonna have some dirt push, let's say when eventually, at some point, this runway will probably get extended in the future. Well, you start looking at this extension, you're here for a taxiway. If you look at this area, it's sloped. You lose slope very quickly into this, it's in a hole. Well, you gotta build that up and it's gonna be a problem eventually.
Harry, does that answer your question?
Well, that little triangle where the Humane Society is that gonna be something that you're gonna use, or what are you gonna do with that? You're gonna sell it?
We won't sell it. I have no idea what we'll do with it. We haven't talked about it that far.
Right.
Thank you.
I was thinking about maybe a healing stand and pilots, rest area in that area, park specs for airplanes in there if we had to, or something like that, but that's.
The problem is, I don't know how you gain access to it, because this is the leasehold for Forest Service.
Right, up to that
To here.
blue line there.
Yeah, so we don't allow people to transition to other people's leases, so.
But above that, you said you were gonna maybe put another taxiway up about where that road is, maybe.
It'll square this off, but the extension is who knows how far out.
Thank you, Stephen.
That's all I
ATCT.
Oh, ATC, that's right. We've talked with Forest Service about this. We also still have our initial kickoff study discussion about a tower program. Pretty much what the Forest Service has said, basically, as soon as they go active, they're going to be doing a tech tower, but it's just not an option.
Be prepared for the modems to come out at 23:30 again the night before. It'll happen again.
I hope they use the same frequency, so we use the same signs.
I hope they do too.
Yeah. Okay.
So that would make it easy for us. Also, just another touch on, we are also doing our air expo as we talked about. We got confirmation from the Department of Air Force, they are bringing both B-25 and B-17 up. It's going to be July 23rd and 24th.
Thank you. Anything else, Stephen?
That's it.
Okay, Coeur d'Alene Airport Association update. You guys can talk, say we met. We
Yeah,
talked about a
we,
lot of things.
We had a good lively conversation last night, and some of the things that came up were AWAS and the runway lighting. We had a question about that runway lighting. I guess there was a bid that just came in for $500,000. What was that for?
The vaults are failing. They're full of water.
Is that for the whole runway on 2.4? Is that just 2.0, or what is that?
So that's not replacing any lighting at all. That's replacing lighting components in the vaults, doing new home runs for 220 into the lighting vault on 6-4, replacing the control systems for the entire airfield. It's doing all of the backbone infrastructure, not the lights themselves.
So we won't have 20 go out when we're trying to land on 624 or 24 going out when we try to land.
Yes, if you notice, sometimes the lights, half the airfield will come on, half of it won't. That's because we have two different vaults that have two different radios antennas on them. But they have the same frequency, it's just the 220 one's higher. So if you're further in one direction, I'll hear it better than the 624.
So that's doing all the infrastructure, to get power to the runway lights.
So it's gonna marry it all up and. It's gonna do what most airports have and have one lighting vault with a generator in one location instead of spread out over multiple locations.
Wow, that's crazy.
And then we had a working, Greg and I talked about putting a group together, 4 guys together to, that would be Mark and Greg and Stephen and Scott and myself or whatever, and just have a overall chit chat about airport operations and about what's going on in the airport. You know, kind of get our heads all wound up on what's going on in the airport and how we handle it. The other thing that came up was gate codes, and I couldn't get into the gate over here at Cessna one evening after dark, and I didn't know what the gate code was because it had changed. And so maybe you guys can get us the gate codes or send them to at least the people that own hangars along the airport there, so you know, get in. That might be advantageous.
Digital operations,
Yeah, there was, I don't remember what, no, I didn't call ops,
but there's the 24-hour phone call ops.
okay.
That's one of the things with, I think, 139, we do have 24-hour service.
You know, we could help us out a little bit.
Also, Harry, we do have Cessna only gate cards, we've got driver training cards that we does have access to Cessna.
Sure. Okay, and then the Air Expo, I guess we discussed that a little bit, but we didn't come to any conclusions on that one. And that's about it.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Hang on here. I'll let you go first, Jeremy.
Yeah, I'd like to just kind of, for over a year now, I've been trying to get a land lease out here at the airport. Steve and me going back and forth with emails, and I just want to be on record saying I disagree with your decision to not grant the land lease based on minimum standards not being met. You talk about having a facility. Well, what is a facility? I mean, nothing in the standards say it has to be an office. I'm saying my facilities is 40,000 square feet of dirt that I'm trying to lease. I mean, yes, I do have a tie down, and that's what my plan is going to be, but this 40,000 square feet of dirt is probably much more land than most single plane operators are leasing out here. So I just like to go on record saying that I disagree with that. Is your stance still that I would not meet the minimum standards?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I ask for a waiver of minimum standards at this point.
Submit a request and the board can look at it.
I will do that.
Thank you. Yes, sir. You waited all this time.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to say, we don't sell iron condominium stuff.
I know, I'm sorry with the. I'm going to a condominium on Saturday, man, so I'm all good for it. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're with luxury.
Luxury International.
Okay.
It's, I've been in the aviation business for 50+ years, and we do things. Well, we have interest in this airport, and I'd like to submit just a preliminary look-see for the airport if I could approach you.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it, right? I mean, we got time tonight.
Certainly, it's just a 2-page document for review.
Would you like to talk through it, or you want us to?
Yeah, if you have just a moment to look through it.
Oh,
Boy, he's stingy.
there you go. Oh, Alex.
Just make sure we get a copy to
Go ahead, sir.
I just included a brief bio in there because frankly, I don't know anyone here and I certainly don't know the airport. So just to give you a little bit of background on myself, I included a few things there.
Right on. So you were captain in the US Air Force?
I was, yes.
Graduate Academy of Aeronautics, Electronics Technology. Maybe you could help them with the balls. Your name again, sir?
Oh, Walt Fraser.
Walt?
Yeah.
Walter Frey.
Walt has been on the advisory board for Gulfstream Aerospace, Bombardier, Dassault, board of directors for Embry-Riddle, Ascent, the China Eastern Company, Republic of China, board of directors for Pacific Partners Aviation and General Aviation Consultant, the government of the Peoples of the Republic of China. Anyway, you've designed and constructed large general aviation facilities and fuel farms in White Plains, New York, Evansville, Indiana, Trenton, New Jersey, Warsaw, Indiana, and Shanghai, China, right?
Sure.
You've also built several heliports, one in Wallingford, Connecticut, and one in Princeton, New Jersey. You've purchased and sold over 32 large cabin business jets to various very high net worth entities internationally. Worked with Richard Santulli in the introduction of NetJets to China. And Warren Buffett in the sale to Warren Buffett. You're an active pilot with over 11,000 hours pilot command, multi-engine jet aircraft. Currently, I pilot a Bombardier Global Express on occasion around the world for 2 billionaire friends. An interesting hobby. I hope that you will provide us guidance and hope that you will consider allowing us the privilege to formally present this project to you for consideration. So do you want to schedule a time to present this, or what's the plan here?
Yeah, actually, what we'd like to do is I'd like to get your thoughts on what you would consider a proper presentation for the airport. Normally, in the past, what we've done is preliminary engineering and presented renderings and so forth. There's certainly cost involved with that, which is not a big issue, but I kind of want to get your feel for it as to what would be acceptable the airport as sort of a preliminary look see, because frankly, I listened carefully tonight, but I don't have a clear idea of what direction the airport's headed in. And anything we do, let's say it's not, we're not looking to introduce airlines to the
Right.
airport. That's not the objective.
So I recommend that you get with Steve and maybe Kim, but you guys can get together, figure out what's available, where it would be, and what kind of plans you have. Would that be appropriate, Steve?
Yeah, Walter reached out to my office on Monday.
Okay,
That was the first time my staff had talked to him. I was out of the office Monday and a good chunk of Tuesday. So I haven't had a chance to talk to Walter.
Walter, how did you find out about our little slice of heaven up here?
I'm sorry.
How did you come to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho?
Oh, I live in Sandpoint.
Okay. Okay. Good.
yeah, so the way it works is usually that stuff is all handled through the airport director and his staff. I mean, I'd like to see some big fancy things show up here too. So I mean, but it's not really for the board to say yay or nay on what type of facilities come in here as long as it meets the minimum standards. That'd be a correct assumption. So I wish you a lot of luck. I mean,
Yeah.
it's nice to see people have interest in this airport.
It's a great place to live. I live in the Sandpoint area, but I live in this area too.
I used to live in Sandpoint too. That's why I call it Bonner County for a little bit, but it's Kootenai County, right? No, that was the best place to come with $1 million of leak broke. And I had neither, but oh well, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, this is a public meeting. Is there any other comments? Yes, sir.
I'd like to talk there a little bit. Couple different things. Our minimum standards, I kind of challenge everybody here to really look those over. This year, the airport's done phenomenal. Stephen's running the airport. It's great. If this isn't as big as Stephen or anybody else, it's really just something for all of us to be concerned with. We should really watch the airport this next year and probably the next 18 months and kind of see what direction it is. leases are up, fuel prices and fuels through the roof and everything else. And there's been a handful of changes here at the airport. It'll be interesting to see where that goes. And I really challenge each one of you guys on this board, because you're representing all of us. You're representing the end users. We can call the airport a county airport or a community airport, but really at the end of the day, you're representing the end users.
Right.
It would be no different than me coming into your neighborhood and being on your HOA and me living on Hayden Lake and saying, well, I don't like white fences. So I really challenge everybody here, and you know, Greg, you're here all the time, and Aaron, as are you, but kind of everybody else of checking in with the little guy that has a T hanger over here, or coming out on Saturday and watching people fly, because you're really affecting a lot of the GA side of this airport. And right now, jets are phenomenal and Sandcraft is great and all these types of things. But as we get ups and downs in the economy, those jets go away. I mean, Aaron's been here for a long time and flown for some of the best, but those ups and downs and the GA that stays tried and true. And a lot of this is the GA that we get affected. You know, something else coming down to the minimum standards, and ours are a little different than the FAA, but we had a buyout here, Sandcraft bought Resort. There was a handful of, there was two gentlemen over there flying had a flight school in a 172. One of them had worked for me and been at the airport for a couple of years. We basically ran them off the airport because they didn't meet the minimum standards with their facility. Well, these guys had customers here, had an airplane here, and did everything that they could do. Now, they were offered something by another company that was moving into the facility. That didn't work out. It didn't work out on dollars and cents for them, you know, I mean, so not only did we lose them out of the county and off the airport, and this is a flight school, so if anybody should be concerned about competition with flight schools, it'd probably be me. I supported them. I thought it was great. Everybody should be, I mean, we're in America, but we lost them out of the counties. We lost revenue there, and they're not even in the state anymore. They're gonna go to Phelps. We've run them to Phelps, guys. Every one of you guys on this board, if we're gonna make some adjustments to our minimum standards for a business that was here that got affected because of a buyout, we should all be embarrassed as a county airport. We should be. These guys were teaching people how to fly. I've got 300 and some odd students over here, you know, and they've got whatever they have. So we should do that. And back to the minimum standards again, and this is my own, I'm gonna stand on the soapbox real quick here, and I'll finish up because I know your guys' time, but you know, I had an ad that was up on AirNav that wasn't done by me, it was done by an employee that had the three letters FBO in it, okay? Per the FAA's minimum standards, I provide 7 out of the 8 services to be deemed an FBO by the FAA. The FAA, our minimum standards are different and said you need to sell fuel. I've personally given my vehicle 8 times this last summer to people that came here in GA aircraft that couldn't get a rental car to go to a hotel, my personal vehicle, and had my wife drive me. And because one of my employees put FBO, and this isn't a dig at anybody, but there was some communication that didn't even go through me for an advertisement that was listed my name. And it turned in kind of a big thing that I can't list FBO. Like, what are we getting down to if we're running, you know, flight schools off the airport? Not that we're running them off, but we're not supporting them to be here. And same thing with the FBO. When I look around at the other FBO on the site, they provide 2, maybe 3 of the services per the FAA's guidance of what an FBO should provide. I provide 7 of the 8. And it was almost came down to lawyers that I couldn't have that in an advertisement. I support a lot of people at this airport, and I rub people the wrong way, and I understand that. And I try to, you know, support and have disagreements with people, but we've got to look at this airport as, and the end users at this airport, and support all of us going forward. Because when the economy does slow down and some of these jets go away and some of these hangars we can't afford, and we keep, I mean, it's great that we're self-sufficient as an airport, but I really challenge each one of you guys to look at the end users, not just 1 or 2, but really look at all the different avenues of end users on this airport. Thank you. But that's all I got. Thank you, Stephen. I think you're doing a great job as an airport manager. That's not a dig at Stephen. I don't want anybody to think that is, because he's got a hell of a job, and I wouldn't want to have this job. So that's my soapbox.
Thank you, Shane. And also, we appreciate your barbecues and donuts.
Our coffee machine now.
It gets people out. It gets people, and I'd encourage any of you guys to come out when you see those opportunities to come out. So at least it gets people talking. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, anything else? I'd like to adjourn this meeting.
All right, I'll second that.
What time is it?
Actually, I have to make a motion because he's not allowed to.
Go for it.
Move that we adjourn.
Any discussion? All right. Aye.
Oh, goodness gracious.